This is Molly Sanyour Ceramics studio here in Adair Park, Atlanta, Georgia. And this week, if you just caught my other live, I was prepping all this clay. So if you want to see how to ram set or spiral wedge, go check out those videos. I am trying to prep a bunch of bowls for my students to learn about trimming this week. So as I'm opening and throwing these bowls, I'm trying to keep a little extra meat on them so that there is some clay to trim. I always go for a continuous curve. I'm just going to throw this one, get in my little rhythm, and then I'll talk you through what I'm doing. Right now I'm just kind of pulling up the thickness of the walls. And a bowl is really just about that continuous interior curve. Actually, I shouldn't even grab that much clay at the bottom. Sometimes as an advanced thrower, I've been throwing for over 20 years, you kind of get in a flow and you forget to do some things to allow beginners to learn. So I need to remember to keep some thickness at the bottom, get this nice continuous curve. You do want the top portion thin enough. We'll put a little rib on this. And then now that I've thrown my first one, usually with pottery you need like a warm-up ball or two. And then we'll take this one off and we'll do the next one and I'll walk you through everything. So if you're curious about how to throw bowls, stick around. If you're just here for an oddly satisfying process pottery video, stick around. And if you're looking for a specific technique, let me know. I am a former teacher. I have a ceramics degree from college, a BFA, and lots of experience, except I did forget my wire cutting tool. So I'm gonna grab one of those real quick. Oh no, I don't even need that right now. Okay, we're good. We're good. So that's my first bowl. And I have a tray rack right here that I can just pop these over on and let them dry up for tomorrow. I have class tomorrow night, so if you know about pottery, you cannot throw and trim in the same night. Now let me show you what I just did there. I took this ball of clay, which looked like this, kind of wedged up, and I went roll, 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 because now the bottom has a nice consistent, instead of like little air bubbles and pockets that can get trapped, it's been rolled, and now I can place that in the middle. And then I always press down. Everything has to start dry. I'm using the black Molly Sanyour Ceramics speedball bats, so they're plastic. If water gets between the clay and the bat, they will just slide off. So right here, I'm centering the clay. To center, I was a whole ceramics major and could barely center the clay. And what I'm doing is my left hand, this left hand is pushing here from my elbow, through my forearm, through the center of the clay, and the right hand's holding across the top like a karate chop. And the hands always need to be connected. If they're working separately, you'll have a hard time getting it centered. Oh, hey, thanks for tuning in and chatting with me live here on YouTube. So now that I'm centered for a bowl, I don't mind if the lip gets open wide. For a cylinder, you do. For a cylinder, if you're trying to get height, don't let this lip open up. So I've opened up. Again, these are for my beginners to learn trimming, so I am trying to keep a little extra thickness. But once you open, then you want to establish how wide the bottom is on the interior. So I'm squeezing a little water with my sponge so it stays slick and it won't get sticky on me. And I'm kind of taking my finger and already starting that continuous curve, which is what a bowl is all about, a continuous interior curve. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in, thanks for chatting. Now I'm taking my sponge and just going from 3 o'clock to center, smoothing that bottom, compressing it evenly so you don't have any weird ridges. But when you throw, you want to think of the inside and how wide you want this bowl to sit on the table. So if I just open and pull, the foot's really narrow. So if I want this to be a solid, stable bowl to put soup or anything in, then I need to make sure I give it a nice opening. And then once you establish how wide it is, a bowl is about the continuous interior curve. You don't want a sharp transition like you do with a cylinder. And then here, now the right hand's the boss. So I anchor up my right hand, press from the base. I do like a wet sponge to give me a little extra lube so it will just slide, and then hands stay connected. Left hand's on the inside, swiping over. The left hand on the inside creates that interior curve. The right hand's the boss, squeezing the thickness of the clay. And now I don't know if you can see, my right hand is on top of this lip. So it's almost holding it and compressing it all at once. And then I always say, rotate, 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 slow release. So I'm gonna add a little bit more water. And you just pull until your walls are evenly thick. And again, these bowls are all about learning how to trim. So I am leaving some thickness at the bottom for the students to have. There's nothing worse than teaching a student how to trim and then their bowl is too thin. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Hey, Slay 20014. I am throwing bowls because here at Sanyour Ceramics Studio, we teach classes, and this week my students are learning how to trim bowls. But it's really hard to kind of time it just right so that you can throw and trim, because since their last class was before the holiday and then we took a week break, or even if they just come in once a week, it's like if you don't wrap your pot and you come back in, it's gonna be bone dry, and you can't trim a bone dry pot. But if you wrap it too well, then it's really wet and you can't trim a wet pot. So I'm trying to throw some bowls for my students to learn trimming on. So I am leaving a little down there. I'll take this just to give me a groove to wire cut later. And then because, can you buy any? Yes, my website is available. I don't have any bowls, I don't think, but I can add some. But I do have mugs and berry bowls and trees, my signature Winter Wonderland trees. And these are the black Sanyour Ceramics speedball bats. They come in round circles as well, which are great for plates, but these, I can fit just a lot more on my shelf here using the square, I think they're 7-inch bats. So yes, you can shop on my website, mollysanyourceramics.com, MOLLYSANYOUR, ceramics.com. Now in the last bowl, because I am a teacher, I am an artist, I love all things clay, I love people who love clay. I am gonna relaunch my Throwing with Molly membership. Right now we have Throwing with Molly, my online show that goes live on Monday nights. Check out that whole collection of season 2. We've had some great guests join me on the wheel, many of whom who have never thrown, but they are interesting guests to throw and chat with. But on this bowl, I just did a little coning up and coning down, which I haven't talked about in this video. I have a whole series of instructional pottery videos. So if you're a potter looking to learn, make sure you check out my other videos. I'm just gonna squeeze, and again, a bowl is all about the interior continuous curve. If I was to slice this open right now, the bottom, it's not continuous. It kind of has like a little W in it. It kind of goes, and so I'm right now with the sponge, I can press it down, make sure it's smooth on the bottom. And then with a bowl, my favorite trick is just double ribbing. This rib gets a curve, this rib gets a curve, anchor, anchor, hold it here, and then gently let the inside rib press out into the other rib, transferring the form of the rib to the walls of the clay, and then slowly coming off. That also leaves it dry, taking off that extra slip. And then I'll just spin and leave this smooth, get out any extra slip, and then don't overlove. Overlove is a real term. I will take this, I'm not gonna cut away a lot from the bottom, because again, these bowls are for my students who learn trimming on, and it's all about the continuous interior curve. So you throw, anything you throw on the wheel, you throw it how you want the outside to look. So then tomorrow, I'll wire cut this and flip it over, and then that bottom will get shaped up to match the interior, but you can't do that until it's leather hard. And that's the tricky part. So I just went live teaching how to wedge. I'm kind of going over how to do a bowl, answering your questions live. Is it hard to make bowls? Because it is kind of hard for me. So great question, Slay. I would tell all of my students, if you were to take a student with me and you've never thrown or you're learning the fundamentals, we always start with a cylinder boot camp. Cylinders are the hardest between bowls, cylinders, and plates, the 3 forms you create on the wheel, or that are the foundation of the other forms on the wheel. The cylinder's the hardest to try to get the height and the tall, thin walls. So I would always say start with the cylinder, because bowls are the easiest, actually. A bowl kind of happens if you just spin the wheel too fast, or if it gets out of control a little bit, it becomes a bowl naturally. So I would say if you're struggling with bowls, start with cylinders. And don't just throw a cylinder, but throw a cylinder, cut it in half, and reflect and critique yourself. How are your walls? How is your transition at the bottom? Is it a 90-degree? Because for a cylinder, when you cut that cylinder in half, you should see a 90-degree transition, a flat bottom, 90-degree vertical wall. So make sure you are checking your cylinders. Don't just throw and keep everything, because then you're not learning. You want to throw, cut it open. And then once you can manage getting your cylinders, bowls are so easy. And I'll show you a little trick. So now I'm gonna anchor this right hand, left hand's on the inside, slow your wheel. Once the clay's open, you gotta slow down because speed kills. Speed's your friend while you're centering, while you're opening. But then you gotta slow down. Rotate, 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 slow release. And then I'm just gonna smooth this out. Another thing when you're throwing is you're always just looking at the top portion, because when I flip this over, I can trim everything from the bottom, but you don't want to trim the lip. Some students will say, can I trim the inside? Can I do that? The technical answer is yes, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. Who's going to check you? Oh my gosh, Slay, your earrings are so pretty. Thank you. I like them because they're very light too. In fact, I used to make my own earrings and I need to make some more because I dropped a pair and they broke. So I do this little roll around because now my bottom has no air pockets, whereas this side where I wedge has a little crease and I can just slam that. I'm gonna take my left hand. Now, normally I would cone up and down, but I'm just trying to get some bowls made. So I'm gonna anchor up my left hand. I'm gonna press the palm in. My fingers are flexed, flex them open, thumb straight up, fingers are out. This is if you're learning. You know, once you get the hang of it, you do whatever you want. And then the right hand's holding a wet sponge, karate chop on top, connect, and then both hands hold the clay, push to the center until there's no wobbles. And once you get it there, let the clay rotate, 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 and then slow release. Okay, now you open, left hand still the boss, right fingertip presses down slowly, patiently. Once I've opened low enough, I'm gonna pull my right fingertip towards me to say, how wide do I want this bowl to sit on the table? Because again, a lot of beginners especially, they will open and then they'll pull. They won't open, establish a bottom and then pull. So make sure you establish how wide, when you trim this, how wide you want that foot to be. Because a narrow bowl is more so decorative. So if you want to really eat out of this bowl or put something hot in this bowl or not have it topple over, then you are going to want to make sure that you've opened the base. Now I'm just kind of compressing, getting a little bit more of this clay, maybe one more pull. Slow the wheel once the clay is opened. And then I do like to put a rib tool to just make it really continuous. Rib tool on the inside matches the rib tool on the outside, curve to curve. And this is where you're just patient. Clay is a lot about patience. Let the clay rotate and then slow release. And I have a beautifully interior curve that I will just run this rib to get that little bit of texture from that rib. Smooth my lip just ever so gently, ever so gently. And then all I'm doing down here, normally if I was throwing, I would cut off any extra clay with the wooden knife, but all I'm doing is holding it this way to give myself a little groove for the wire cutter tomorrow when I flip these. Okay, so that's number 5. I forget exactly how many I need. I have 3 classes this week. And not everybody is new. Let's see. Do you live in the USA? Yes. Which state? Georgia. And no problem if you don't want to say, yeah, I live in the United States. We're in Atlanta, Georgia. And we offer one-time workshops for people to come just see if they like it, which who doesn't love clay? Everybody loves clay. And then really clay is a time-consuming medium. You can't just make and take it home in one day. You got to make it, and then you come back, and you got to be patient. You got to let it dry. At some stages you can carve. At some stages you sign it. At some stages you clean it up. And so really from the one-time workshops, our students get hooked and then they want to do the 8-week workshop. But here we are at the end of the year, so we're actually ending with a 4-week holiday session. Normally our 8-week classes are structured to really develop skills and your artistic voice. So we cater to all skill levels, whereas this 4-week class really caters to all skill levels, but it's more for like making gifts for the people that you love. A lot of times when people find out that you're taking a pottery class, then their demands of you as an artist become, I don't want to say selfish, but if you know, you know. People are like, oh, make me a mug. Oh, make me a berry bowl. Oh, make me. And so I try to protect my students to allow them the creative opportunity to sit at the wheel and just create whatever they want based on their own techniques, their own aesthetic, their own artistic voice. And so I try to encourage them, don't get onto the gift making train. Make what you want to make. develop your technique, develop your skills, and then we end with an art show. So these 4 weeks are a holiday session. They are listing out the people that they love, that they want to make a little gift for, and they are making some holiday gifts. So for our beginners taking our 4-week class, I am throwing some bowls so that this week they will have a nice leather hard bowl to learn how to trim on. What is the time for you? It is like 1:30 in the afternoon. What time? Where are you tuning in from? Slay. Oh, you're in Sweden. And the time here is 7:37 p.m. So is it winter? It's dark there in Sweden right now. It's about to be dark here in like no time because it's winter. You can kind of see how beautiful it is out right now. It's not dark yet. But sometimes when I get to throwing and chatting, I forget that these bowls are for my beginners to learn on, and I open them a little too low. I like to really give them some meat to learn how to trim. Because trimming is when you take away the extra thickness at the bottom, and clay is all about creating an evenly thick pot. So if you've got thin lips and then a thick bottom, you could get cracks or explosions. So you always are trying to create evenly thick pieces. So that's why we trim. If it's really fat at the bottom, you trim it off and you make it the same thickness as everything else. That's why when you're throwing, you're just really asking yourself about the interior curve or shape or form and how thick is the top portion of your pot, because you can trim away the bottom and the exterior later. But you're always, again, trimming to match the interior. So sometimes I think students will kind of trim a funky shape, but you look on the inside and it's just got straight walls. So if you want to do a wheelie wall, then your inside should match it. So good questions. Good questions. And I'm just going to smooth, smooth, smooth. And then again, let me just hold this. Maybe I'll open this one a little bit. At the bottom, I would usually take a wooden knife and trim away, like pre-trim. But now I'm just running it at the base to give a place to get the wire cutter underneath. So you see just a little groove. And then when it's time to flip, I can run a wire under that and flip it later. But that's the beauty of these black Molly Sanyour Ceramics speedball bats. They pop on different size wheel heads and they just pop on. And then when I'm ready to trim it, I can pop it back on and cut it and flip it. And it just stays centered. All right, hope this helps. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm gonna hop off and go over to my Instagram, see what they're doing. But if you're on here watching this, make sure you check out my other how-to videos on my Molly Sanyour Ceramics page. Thanks for tuning in. Hope this helped and hope y'all will be in the studio to take a class.